I'd like to change gears and focus on forward-thinking actions. And just share with you a few of the initiatives that I have been involved with over the years. In 1991 and 2001, I had stated that I developed and ran a Lakota immersion program where I took faculty, staff, and Millersville students to the Cheyenne River Reservation and the Pine Ridge in South Dakota. During that time, the students were able to, I took also a Millersville University basketball coach, and we ran a one-week basketball camp together. And then after I had 24 years of playing volleyball, it was, sports that kept me out of trouble on the reservation. So I wanted to give back to the people. And I had 24 years of playing volleyball, so I ran a volleyball camp. And we ran each of these, back to back. And then other students, social work and psychology, and some education majors, they all had different volunteer locations. So it was a positive activity, and the students, there was a nice cultural exchange, people learning about each other's cultures, and there were a lot of friendships that were made. And the Millersville University students had an opportunity to experience a Sundance ceremony, to experience a need be a sweat lodge, and to be able to have a Lakota speaker every evening on whatever topic, whether it be education, spirituality, politics, the environment, whatever. So that was a great opportunity, and that would be an example of a forward-thinking initiative. The second thing is there's a local group called We're All God's Children, and I'm not sure if I see any of the members in the audience, but it's a local nonprofit organization, and they are actually in Pine Ridge right now. They fundraise and they collect glasses, spectacles, for the people on the reservation, and then they repair them, and the volunteers are trained using a refractor machine to take their prescriptions, and they set up their free clinics, eye clinics, at local schools. And they're actually there right now, and I think they're flying back tomorrow. But they've been there for the past 2 weeks. I took them as a cultural liaison to Pine Ridge, helped them establish some contacts on the reservation, and also helped them to know the lay of the land. The third thing is the longest walk. In July 2008, commemorated the 30th anniversary of the original longest walk in 1978. So in 1978, there was the longest walk, the very first one. And that's when the American Indian movement led the longest walk, where they left from they left from the San Francisco Bay Area and arrived in Washington, D.C. They walked 8,200 miles, because there were two groups that went. There was the northern route and the southern route. And in July of 2008 was the longest walk too, and they followed the same routes. Participants were over 100 American Indian nations that were represented, and other indigenous participants such as the Maori people. They had people come over and participate from Japan. I saw some Japanese people, I saw some monks that also walked. I mean, it was amazing. There were a lot of other non-indigenous supporters that were there. And like I said, there were two routes, the northern and the southern route. So when I heard about it, I got a phone call saying that the northern route people were camped at Cadoras Park in York. So I quickly collected some water bottles and some food, and some friends and I traveled to Cadoras Park and gave it to the walkers there. The walkers were delivering a 30-page manifesto, and it was the Manifesto of Change, which had a list of demands that included mitigation for climate change, a call for environmental sustainability, protection of sacred sites, the renewal and improvement of Native American health, focused on Native American sovereignty, and we also met the group later at the Greenbelt Park in Maryland. So they had left Cadoras and had gone down to Greenbelt where they were camping for the night. And I had an opportunity to meet Dennis Banks, who is an American Indian movement leader, an AIM leader. It was just by accident. There were like thousands of people camped there. And we go to a campfire where there was drumming next to it, and we were just standing there, and he got up from the drum and walked directly toward us. So my friend and I got to meet him. I got to speak to him for about 10-15 minutes, which was just so amazing. I can't believe I met this, this Dennis Banks, leader of the AIM group, and was talking to him about some of the things that I've been working on, and he called me a lady warrior. And he encouraged me to keep on doing the things that I'm doing here in Pennsylvania, being so far away from home. And we then again met them at Malcolm X Park, where we all marched with the manifesto from the Malcolm X Park to the White House on Pennsylvania Avenue. And that was pretty exciting because we sang songs in Lakota, and there were a lot of little children, babies, clear on up to elderly people who were walking and pushed. And so it was a really special time to be a part of that. Well, while I was in Washington, D.C., another initiative, my friend and I contacted Pennsylvania Representative Joe Pitts. And we wanted to make an appointment with him to talk to him about his position on Native American issues that come up. Any bills, we wanted to talk to him about Pine Ridge. We had photographs. We had statistics that we wanted to share with him. And unfortunately, he canceled, did not meet with us, but he sent his staffers. So that whole experience ended up being the Pitts because Joe Pitts was absent. So, and we never did hear back, and I was very disappointed about that. But we did write him a letter expressing our disappointment. But we stopped by, that was the Cannon House in Washington, D.C. So we walked down the hall and we found where the South Dakota state representative was going to be. So we walked in that office, and luckily for us, we were able to meet with Stephanie Herseth, who was the state representative for South Dakota. And she knew some of my family on Cheyenne River, and it was just so nice to be able to hear all the different initiatives that she was working on behalf of the Native American people in South Dakota. Another initiative is, in the summer of 2011, I received a grant from the Women's Commission on the Cultural Diversity, the Women's Commission, and then the Commission on Cultural Diversity to support a Plains Indians teepee project. It was a senior project, which was a dual discipline project, culture, anthropology, and art. It was a labor of love, and it began with a gift from my stepfather. He gave me a 20-foot by 40-foot blank canvas in the shape of a teepee. And he gave it to me the previous summer and had used it for many years for family ceremonies and gatherings. My inquiries to the teepee's origin and its connection to Lakota Sioux cultural history and stories was now in my own hands. So it sat in my garage for a whole year, and I was like wondering, what I was going to do with it. I unfolded it, and it was massive. And I don't know if any of you saw it. I had it set up here in the atrium right here in November last year as part of my senior project. So with the help of a Lakota Sioux ledger artist, we designed the artwork, and then the painting process began. And on the back center of the teepee is a silhouette of the monument that stands as a memorial next to the mass gravesite at Wounded Knee. It bears only some of the names of those who died, the monument does. But on my teepee, I hand wrote the names that start from one end the whole way around. There were 3 full lines of all the names of Chief Seetonka, Bigfoot, and Chief Bald-Head Eagle and their tribal families. And I did this as a way to honor and memorialize them. I learned that the Oyate, my people, are resilient and are survivors, and I honor them for their strength. I wouldn't be here today if they weren't a strong people. My parents asked me, they knew I was doing this project, and they asked me to, my final sentence, and they asked me to write this. And in Lakota, it's Tohei ni onikdu jaksteshi. Tohei ni onikdu jaksteshi. You will not be forgotten. We will remember you. And then at McDaniels College, this year, June 2000, I met with 2 faculty. One is a chemist and one is an environmental scientist. And they want to work with the Lakota Sioux on Pine Ridge, and we discussed a sustainability initiative. I gave them contact information and traveled to Cheyenne River and Pine Ridge, and they traveled to these reservations to test the soil for our project for 2013. In the Lancaster County Park, there are garden plots where inner city people can go to the county park and have a garden, a little family garden. So I spoke to these two faculty members at McDaniels College and asked them, could we do the same thing? And they were so excited about it. And so this summer, they traveled to the reservation and test the soils in both reservations. And next year, we'll bring McDaniels students and maybe some Millersville University students to go back and to plant gardens and teach Lakota Sioux families how to grow their own gardens. And they also are discussing an exchange program between the Oglala Lakota College and McDaniels College to be able to have the students, go study at each other's colleges. And then I'll end with the symposium at Dickinson College. I was invited to share my teepee and present my teepee there. So October 5th and 6th, and it's a free symposium, so you're all invited to go. It's in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, which is a major site of memory for many Native people. The Carlisle Indian Industrial School, 1876 to 1918, was the first educational experiment for Native American Indians in this country. The symposium will bring together Native and non-Native scholars, leaders, artists, and community members to share their work, concerns, and perspectives. The symposium creates a space for sharing, reflection, creativity, and scholarly work. Invited speakers will address themes as they relate to Carlisle and the region: sites of memory, Indigenous educational issues, relocation or forced migration, trauma and memory, historical and intergenerational, reclamations, culture, language, and land. Narratives will be oral, written, and then my teepee will be visual. I will present on my teepee project that stands 20 feet tall, and it focuses on reclaiming culture and heritage, and it'll be on display for 2 weeks at the Widener Spar Library in Dickinson College. So these are just a handful of the different initiatives that I've been working on, and it would be my pleasure to be able to work with all of you, any of you who are interested, and please spread the word to your friends, to other students that might be interested, other community members that might be interested in being a part of this action group, because it's so important to not just sit back and hear about these things going on in another part of the country. We need to take action. It's so important. In order for this world to be a better place for all of us, we need to take care of everyone that lives here on this earth. Inamaka is Mother Earth. It's so important for all of us.